So, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of RIRE 1x1 with Zach Freeland. And I'm lucky to be joined today by one of our uh, board members, and he's our trumpet section leader. And last summer, he was one of our composers, Brandon Dix, who is joining us from his home in Hartford, where he can set up a much better audio system than I'm used to. So, today's going to look even more professional than it usually will. But Brandon, uh, you are you've uniquely put together a talented skill set of performing, composing, recording, media, and everything. And I'm just curious, kind of, what came first, and how did it all start?
Okay, sure, yeah. So for me, the start actually was more with the composing side. When I was younger, especially with undergrad, I considered myself more of the composing and composer Brandon as the highlight of everything. And then as time went on, I realized, oh, I'm actually pretty good at trumpet. And what I found was, weirdly enough, that I write very difficult music, and to the point where it was hard for some ensembles to play the music. So once I got to a certain level with playing, I'm like, oh wait, I can put all these parts together. I'm gonna try hearing how it sounds if I do it, and it'll be a little test run to see whether the parts are actually difficult or if I can play them myself. So I did some multi-tracking, put one piece up, a piece called Subduction together, and I thought it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And then I thought, oh, I could probably do this a little bit more. So as time went on, I started to get more creative, do some more fun arrangements, and I got to the point where I'm like, what if I did something really hard? And uh, that's where Eine Klein Knock music came from when I was experimenting with some piccolo stuff, and I decided to do that. You can see that video, full beard, long hair, and all. It's old Brandon for sure, but um, it kind of came out organically in a lot of ways because of that. It's like, well, let me try this. Let me see if this will work, and use my composing set with what I considered at that time like, oh, I'm a decent trumpet player. Now I'm like, well, let's see if I can get some more fun arrangements and stuff that's really difficult into one place. Stuff that pretty much professionals would struggle with, even with a little bit of rehearsal. Just getting some really cool arrangements showing off what a trumpet can do. So
Yeah, there's a whole slew of videos. We've had the Stars and Stripes Forever up on your page, and
yeah,
you've done Spider-Man. How do you pick and choose which of those projects you like to take on?
it depends. It's usually inspiration from something else, either what I enjoy. I mean, back for the Spider-Man video, it was more of just the movie just came out, Spider-Man Far From Home, and I was like, well, let's do the original theme. And there wasn't a lot of those arrangements for trumpet online, so I decided we'll start there. Use that as a basis. I also do original compositions too. It gives me some time to test to see how practical the parts are. Particularly, mainly with what's the biggest one? Subduction was a big one. I actually wanted to do one with a recently composed trumpet ensemble work called Clockwork, which is very hard, but that needs a little bit more time to record. But then for the arrangements, it's either let's see a tune that everyone would like, or something that's a personal favorite of mine, like Star Wars and soon to be Super Smash Brothers medley, because all those themes are beautiful, but they're hard. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, and so you started writing trumpet music, and when did you start to make the switch into band music? Or
Weird.
not switch, but when did you start to also get into band music?
So actually, I was fortunate enough. I started with band music when I was younger. So I did. I'm taking a 180 of what people usually do in some cases, because When I was younger, about sixth, seventh grade, that's when I started composing, and I was composing what I was listening to a lot of and what I was playing a lot of, which was high school band, well, middle school band, and then high school band. And I enjoyed a lot of those works, so I was like, I want to write that. So most of my younger stuff is actually, funny enough, for wind ensemble and orchestra. So yeah, kind of a weird flip. And I was very fortunate when I was younger, from my high school days. My band actually played a piece every single year I was there. So I had four pieces performed. So that helped a lot with understanding orchestration and kind of experimenting and getting how a band works, doing it at a young age, and then
Yeah.
coming back later, really, because I wrote some pieces for band, but it was when I finally got a composition teacher, it was more of, you should probably do chamber music first. You did a lot of band, do chamber music now. And then when I came back, I'm like, oh yeah, this is a lot of fun. This is what I need to do more. And
Yeah.
that's where my newer pieces are definitely originating too. So
Yeah. And I relate to the experience of being in high school band and saying, "Oh, I want to do this."
uh-huh.
Who were some of the composers that really um, inspired you to be like them, in a sense?
Oh, the big one, Michael Doherty. Michael Doherty, he was one of my big idols. Like, I loved his music, the way he used rhythm, orchestration, obviously impeccable. That's one of his big traits that everyone loves. But I also just liked the style that he used. It was like a mixture of jazz with um, but it was still rooted with a classical tradition, but with a little jazz influence. Of course, Frank DeKelly, big favorite. Everyone's John Mackey. Everyone loved him back. What was that? 2010, 2011, when he was really popular.
Yeah.
But I followed in the trend of John Mackey. It's pretty obvious. So, um, some other guys though. David Gillingham, obvious pick too. We I got exposure with him because we played Heroes Lost and Fallen my freshman year of high school. I'm like, you can write like this? That's so cool. And so I took all the things that he did and I'm like, let me try that. And obviously it wasn't as good, but it was fun to like have that inspiration even at a young age. Yeah, those were probably the big guys that I can remember at this moment. And of course Stravinsky, because thinking orchestra, I mean, I loved everything that he was doing with rhythm. So
Yeah. And did you find that, 'cause you said you kind of had this circling back to focusing more on band music now, do you find that a lot of those influences remain the same, or do you find that you've had a kind of a drastic shift in your style?
I think right now there, I think my style has stayed the same for the most part. The biggest difference now is I am much more influenced with rhythm. And I was before, but now it's like, oh, it's obvious. I like pulsing dance music, a lot of things that are driving. And even if I'm running a chorale, there's some type of dance or like some rhythmic motive that's really pushing it forward. So and I think the biggest and probably the most mature thing that's happened now compared to late before was now I'm very much more counterpoint focused too. Instead of thinking even harmonies going like thinking a lot of vertical like I did back then, now I'm thinking like, oh no, I'm think of how the numbers relate to each other in terms of like this D with this F sharp. I was like, oh, that's a third. But how I can make something really creative from just how everything moves in a progression of time instead of just, here's a chord, it goes to this chord. Those are two pretty chords. So
Yeah.
that's something I really love.
And just take us through your process a little bit. Where does it start with the idea? Does it start with the melody? Does it start with anything in particular?
Mhm.
The piece that RIRE recorded, Aerial Escape, which we'll put in the comments down below. Was there a particular inspiration behind that, or?
That's so, and I have actually liked doing this. That piece was taken from a theme I wrote back in middle school. So I wrote this piece called March to Glory, and if you actually listen to, it's like measure 9 through like the first big section. I think it's 33. I don't have that beautiful memory like some people, sadly. I wish I did. But right after it goes to this 4/4 groove and then it finally hits 3/4 in the piece, that's all pretty much from when I wrote it when I was younger. I changed some things with orchestration. I wanted to influence some younger composers to actually start writing for band and say, hey, you're able to do this. Like, this is a fun activity. Feel free to join in. Like, I did it when I was younger. You can easily do it. I mean, I'm not that smart. So I just was dedicated and had time. So...
Yeah. And there's all kinds of, there's clapping in that piece, there's all kinds of things, so I assume that kind of falls into the idea of you want it to be fun, you want it to really show how.
Exactly. Right. And for me, for that piece, I mean, the original start to it, I mean, I had the idea, I had what it was, and then I'm like, okay, let's see what I can do now that I have something written, and how can I change this over time to make it something completely different and a lot more fun. So take the original thing from what I did back in the day, and let's expand on that. And I think it became a really good result for the final product. With the name Aerial Escape and why it's got changed, sometimes I think the name goes with the emotion and the mood, and that's really kind of like an aerial battle for me compared to a march what it was before. So my process now, though, it changes from piece to piece. Usually I am inspired by some type of visual story or image, and I take that image and kind of morph music to that. Other times it's a melody, and then I'm like, oh, this represents this image. That's like this has to do that, and that comes maybe like a month later, but there's some type of visual thing for me or some type of story that really puts the piece together.
And I know from reading your bio that it's okay to talk about this. You see music related to colors.
Yes.
Yeah. And so has that really influenced the way you write in a particular way?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
To put it this way, for some certain pieces, like it just has to be. Yeah, this is a fun story. For some certain pieces, it has to be in a certain key, because like if you change the key, then it just changes like all the colors, and it's like no, like so. For instance, this piece called Echoing Flares, I wrote the whole thing in concert E for band. And I know right now you're cringing in your seat like, why would you do that? Why would you write a piece in concert E for band? And all the composers out there are like, yeah, you're an idiot. But that's what I was seeing. And then I gave it to a band director, and he was like, no one's going to play this. You know that, right? It's in E. Like, that's the dumbest thing you could have done to have a piece like be performed ever.
It's in a flat key. It's in F flat.
I know. So he convinced me to change it to F. Literally go at half step, but my brain was like, this is too much. I can't do it. So, any band directors out there, if you want to play that piece in E, great. It's probably not going to sound too great, but okay.
And do you have perfect pitch as well? Does that... Yeah.
Yep. It's linked to it since I see the colors. I associate the color to a pitch. So, for instance, a concert E, reason why it's so bad, E is green, F is orange. So if you're thinking like, it's like, you go into two different worlds.
Drastically different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Um, Switching gears a little bit, you wrote a book called Scales with Character.
scales and
Scales and
etudes in
etudes
one
in one
book.
book,
Yes.
yes.
Yes. And just for all the hopefully trumpet players listening, and anyone else who's interested, why don't you just tell us a little bit about that book and kind of, why'd you write it?
Hmm.
And yeah.
Of course. Yeah. So this book was I wanted to create something for my students where they can just open up one book and have all the resources that they needed for a lesson. So I thought, okay, obviously scales foundation of learning just music in general. Let me start with some simple scale exercise that actually was produced by my teacher Robert Murray, my undergrad teacher, and I'm gonna still take his basis and add to that. So that's basically the breaking apart method, taking some music education methods of let's break things down to make it easier for a student and make it very clear. And then let's do what every educator needs to strive for is apply what you've learned to something that's applicable. An etude, actual music. So that's where the full basis of the book came. It's basically exercises, but applying those exercises to an etude. So you can actually focus on what is truly important, musicality. So if you see my video about it, scales and etudes in one book, that's what it is. Scales and etudes in one book. You literally go do some scale exercises, flip a page, now you play an etude. So, and it was going to be longer because it was going to have warm-ups too because I wanted the full complete package, but that means that would have been a 100-page book and people would have to pay a lot more money. So I decided to just make it scales and etudes, and a book. That other warm-up book is coming soon.
Okay. And this is going to be a broad question, but what's your kind of philosophy on musicianship? Because obviously, the fact that you like having, the fundamentals and the musicality of music mixed together in one book. How have your ideas on musicianship kind of led you to that, and how does it relate to your composing and your performing? And
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's a great thought. Because musicality, I mean that that word has so much meaning in it because you can put it with almost every little aspect of music that you can think of. The way I perceive it is a chain of command, and you following and expressing that chain of command in what form or fashion that you need to. To put it this way, who writes the music? The composer. The composer has this idea that he's probably influenced from something else, and he is reacting either from something that's not musical or something that is musical, but he's basically putting what he's heard and reacting to that. So, composer is number one. He's the one who actually creates it and says, oh, you should do this with it. The composer gives it to the performer. There's conductors sometimes, but we won't talk about that guy. He has his own little special thing on the side, as you probably could talk about a bunch. So, but then there's the performer. The performer still can give their own personal expression and all that, but they have to follow the basic ideas that the composer gives them. What's the style? What are you trying to portray with the music? Follow the shape of the music that the composer hopefully did a great job of just outlining for you, either with the notes themselves or with adding dynamics just to give a little extra help. If not, that's where you come in. You're the one who's supposed to take what the composer gave and really express what the composer is saying with it. So, musicality to me is when somebody is able to express that music in their own personal way, but to do it related to the subject at hand.
You reminded me of a question that I asked everyone when I did my dissertation research, which is where does the composer's job end and the conductor or performer's job begin?
Right.
So, yeah. I don't know if you had any further thoughts on that, or
Really, I mean, because the conductor, they shape the music. They take, like, the conductor can completely alter the piece. Like, it could be a completely different piece once the conductor's done with it. In some ways, that's really exciting. Like, you could, like, I know there's been some pieces I've composed. I'm like, wow, this is not going to sound good at all. And I give it to a performer or a conductor, and it's like, oh, that's amazing. What did you do? Help me. And that's because really it's everyone on the same page with this stuff. And it's getting the common goal of making the best product to help out a bunch of people. So I think when you have a really good conductor, your job's super easy. Like, you sit back, you let them take over, and they'll give you suggestions to help the next performance too. So I think their job does end though when notes start really changing on the page, like when that meaning or that specific, I wouldn't say notes on the page, because notes on the page can change too. I think that's okay. It's when that meaning or that image is gone that the composer had. That's when the composer has to say, no, sorry, that takes away from my image, and that's the composer's call. What does that do? Does that really do that, or does that take away from my image, or does that actually enhance it? Because sometimes when you change the notes, it makes for a more beautiful image too. So it's a fine line for sure. You probably know more about that, Mr. Doctorate.
I want to switch gears again because you also are a very talented photographer, and I just curious how you got into photography. Is it kind of still as a hobby? And what do you really enjoy about it? What keeps bringing you back to? So you've taken some awesome pictures of nature around Rhode Island and stuff, and so
yeah, sure. So I don't know exactly where it originated from the videography portion, because you can see it from me right now. I like making something look nice for video for sure, because I'm into doing the arrangements and really getting something at a high product level for that. So for me, photography really stemmed from there. It's like, this, because when you buy a camera, and it's a good camera, you can also do photos on it. So it kind of just slowly transitioned to that, and I feel it's really, really good for performers and composers. Just, we love music so much, but there's so much that we can take that until it just becomes our whole lives. Like, we got to have something else. There's got to be something else besides just, how can I make this 5 go to something else besides 1 or a deceptive cadence? Why does it have to be a 5? Why can't it just be like this really tense instead of thinking about in those portions? I think it would be better get back home after a long day of thinking about all that stuff and thinking about how you could do a 2 for once. Thinking, well, maybe I can just sit down, look at this photo, relax my brain, just tweak it a little bit, or even for a weekend, go on a hike, take some photos on my way on that hike, And it's just getting you away. It's just decompressing everything, and it's a lot of fun. So it just really became a fun side hobby, and I take I take portrait shots for a lot of people. That's probably where, I mean, there's a little bit of money too, which helps, of course. But um, going out and taking pictures and just really seeing nature and all that, just relaxing to me.
And does the music influence the photography and the photography influence the music, or do you just try to keep them separate?
They influence each other. I mean, I love how Sibelius learning that program. Like I know a bunch of new other programs just because I've learned that one. So it's been really great in a lot of ways. And because I mean most computer software they really transfers with each other. Plus, photography is still art. You can still think of a lot of similar things like the golden ratio, like thinking proportions in a photo, and just like there's a lot of things that are similar. But I mean, music's music. Like, there's no way that you're gonna change chord progressions into a photo
Yeah.
unless someone blows my mind. Please blow my mind if you watch this. But right now, photography, I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't say there's a really direct link to say, oh yeah, I have taken this photo and this photo I gotta make a piece. I haven't done anything like that yet.
Tell us about some projects that you are working on right now. I know what you're doing in the fall, so feel free to talk about that, but also just some things that you're working on right now.
So I am very close to completing my bass trombone concerto. Oh, this is my favorite piece so far. So it's a bass trombone concerto written for the current West Point band member Felix Padilla, and the piece is basically about being stuck on a train where you could travel the whole world, but you can't get off the train. You can only see it through the metal box that's around you. So dealing with those emotions and actually trying to physically get off the train too, and then realizing you can't. It's it starts off with a bunch of happiness and like, oh wow, I'm seeing the world. I'm get to like explore and see everything. And then you realize, oh wait, I'm not actually experiencing it. I'm only seeing it. And then trying to be okay with that and then not being okay with that and then trying to find any way to really just and in a lot of ways it's kind of the situation that we're in right now.
Yeah.
Not except we're literally stuck in our houses. Oh.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, this piece is it's a probably one of my biggest works so far, and it's definitely one of my most complex. It's very accessible though. It actually uses some hip hop influence and a lot of Stravinsky, lots of Stravinsky, like very heavily rhythmic. Um, so that's my current project. It's called the Traveler's Loop. Um, there's a current project that I can't talk much about, but it's hopefully I'll get to say some stuff in the future. Gets to deal with birds. I'm really looking forward to that one. Other than that, if you've seen my recent posts, I think I'm gonna do more of these in the future. I don't know exactly when, but I did just release a new video called "Prayer for the Isolated." Little melody, one little idea, and then add one on for each day. Really playing with the media thing. So I think that'd be really cool for the future. So stay tuned for that. Plus more stuff with YouTube, more arrangements and all that for sure. So for the fall, I can say I will be moving to Arizona State to do a doctorate with trumpet performance on, well, this instrument here. Do all the stuff there. I'm going to miss New England, but it was the right opportunity. And I get to stay with a very awesome trumpet player, Joe Bergstaller, who was part of the Canadian Brass. And I'm looking forward to being the TA at that school too. So Right now, it's kind of a transition period, so projects are kind of on the down low, except for one that might be announced soon.
You mentioned being here in New England and moving to Arizona. You are originally from
Georgia.
Georgia. And this is just something I always like to ask people because I love traveling around the country. What uh, what has it been like moving up from growing up in the South and then moving up here?
Mhm. So for
What's the
me,
difference been?
it really isn't that much different,
Mhm.
at least because we're still in America. It's still in the United States. Everyone mostly acts the same. People are maybe like, I haven't really dealt with that many rude people because everyone says Southern hospitality. There's like, sure, people can be rude down in the South too. It's not necessarily, if there's anything I notice, a little quirk is people in the North, they do talk faster. And it's not necessarily them talking faster, it's more about the conversation is faster. It's when you say something, it's like you say it immediately afterwards. Whereas a Southern conversation, we let things rest a little bit. Kind of like this interview. But
Kinda.
this makes sense because we're both thinking a little bit more
Yeah,
than usual.
yeah. Um, yeah, definitely. Now is the weather nicer in New England or in Georgia?
Whoa, Southern boy moving up to Georgia. Uh, oh wait, other way around. Sorry, Southern boy moving up to Connecticut. Yeah, I that cold. It actually didn't bother me as much, but I think if I moved to Chicago or somewhere in that region, I would be a lot more scared.
Yeah, Chicago not only is it cold, but it has the lake effect. So yeah, you're enough inland in Connecticut where
Yes,
yeah.
and I haven't really had any problems with snow or like there was adjustment brushing out my car, realizing I would wake up early to brush off my car. But other than that, not really. Like
Yeah.
I've enjoyed my stay, and the summers, oh, they're much better than Georgia. 100% humidity, 95 to 100. Ooh, I don't. Air conditioning though, that's something I do miss.
Yeah.
And it's not as much commonplace here. So everyone,
That's right. So down in the south, all the houses will automatically have like a central. Yeah.
yes, exactly.
Yeah, you still see a lot of window units around.
Yes, I still have my window unit. And down south, yeah, every place has air conditioning because you have to have it.
Yeah.
Not only because you have to cool it down, but you have to take away the humidity too. So you need it.
Yeah. And just kind of on that subject, 'cause I mentioned, I like traveling. Do you get to do a lot of traveling or?
Uh, yes and no, because I have to stay here doing a double master's.
Mhm.
I'm pretty much I have to stay remote for the most part, except for when I get fun adventures doing gigs in multiple different places. I mean, I get to go to Rhode Island. I went to New York quite a few times. I got one time to go to Philly
Mhm.
for a gig. That was a lot of fun. So traveling is a thing, but during the school year, I have to stay here. Lots of people. I work. I do a lot of work.
And have you been out to Arizona yet, or has it just been all remote audition process?
I actually went and visited. It's
Yeah,
it's. I'm super excited to go out there. It's
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah,
Very different from New England. New England's like condensed.
yeah.
Arizona, open fields.
Spread out. Yeah, right. And so we talked about music. We talked about photography. Is there any other fun interests from Brandon Dix that you'd like to talk about?
I could easily talk about roller coasters for hours and hours. That's for sure.
Yes.
I
Well, and that inspired another piece of yours that we can talk about, the toddler in an amusement park.
that's right. Yes,
Yes.
it's influenced quite a few pieces. Funny enough.
Yeah.
There's another piece called Trick Track Double Up. You can find it on my YouTube channel. Me playing artists. It's taken from an element on a roller coaster called a Trick Track Double Up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's a weird name. I'm gonna make a piece about it. So there's that one. A toddler amusement park. That's another high school band piece.
Mm-hmm.
We performed that because my band director at the time, he said, "Brandon, you write super serious music. Can you write something fun, please?" So I'm like, I like roller coasters. Let's do a toddler amusement park. Mm-hmm. So complete change. Yeah.
And have you been to Cedar Point?
Oh, of course.
Okay. Yeah.
I need to go back.
When I was in Ohio for a couple of years, everyone kept telling me, "Oh, you got to go to Cedar Point. You got to go to Cedar Point." I never made it. I'm sorry.
I think it's 6 rides now that are over 200 feet. So, and I have rode Top Full Dragster for all those enthusiasts out there. I've rode every ride except I haven't been on Steel Vengeance or Valraven. So, for all you coaster guys out there, there's one of you.
Coaster enthusiasts. Well, it has been great sitting down with you. It's always great working with you with RIRE and everything else. Tell everyone, and we'll put the links in the comments, but just tell everyone where they can find you as far as websites and YouTube channels and everything.
Of course, and I will look at you this time. So you can go to BDix Music, bdixmusic.com, BDix Music on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. You can see all that I have, trumpet arrangements, compositions, and also just teaching videos. So check me out.
Right. And for more information on the Rhode Island Recording Ensemble, you go to www.rirecording.org, and you can find me at www.zjfmusic.com. Until next time, thank you to Brandon. Thank you to everyone for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay home. Take care.
Thanks, Zach.
Yep, thank you.
I think I might have done it up. Uh-oh. Yep. That's okay. I think I got most of it.
Okay. Yeah, I saw those screens go off, but I didn't see anything on them, so I didn't.
Oh, yeah, it's got to download the giant thing. I forgot. No, it's been running the whole time. It's just, it probably, I don't know how long we actually went.
Okay.
It probably cut off like the last little bit because it can only do 30 minutes. I forgot about that.
Okay.
All right, and let me see if Katie's here. Yep. Oh, perfect timing. I only see one person during this time, and that's Katie. So.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, I will let you go. Just whenever you're ready, just drop off the video.